Hi, I'm Amy Weir. I'm the Place 5 trustee for Round Rock Independent School District and the current board secretary.
Hi, I'm Tiffanie Harrison. I am the Place 6 trustee for the Round Rock Independent School District, and I am the current board vice president.
And we're here to talk today a little bit about meetings and quorums. I know that may be a little bit confusing to people. We have in Round Rock ISD an inordinate amount of meetings. Way more than most school boards across the state of Texas. Absolutely, we do. And so I don't think a lot of people really understand the importance of who's sitting on that dais. And it will be more important come November. So we hope that you're paying attention, because a quorum of the board right now, there are 7 of us. So a quorum is 4. We need 4 people to get the business of the district done. And sadly, that's actually been an issue.
Absolutely. It has been an issue. We've had 2 of our colleagues that did not like to RSVP for meetings or have walked out and broken quorum. And so it's really important that we have people elected that are committed. I would encourage you to look at people's meeting attendance now that are running, because it's a huge commitment. And I know that personally, one thing that I'd like to see over the next 4 years is that we really work to structure ourselves as a board so that we aren't going late into the night. We aren't having to have 8, 10, 12 meetings a month. You know, average is 1 to 2 meetings a month. You have your regular board meeting where you take care of all your statutorily required business and you get any updates on data, presentations about students, celebrating staff, etc. And then you may have 1 or 2 other scheduled or called meetings to do a workshop around facilities or a workshop around academic performance, and that's also a time where you take care of grievances as well.
And you know, for Lone Star Governance, which is the model that we use, it's TEA's Lone Star Governance that we are a part of. Their goal is a 2-hour meeting.
Correct.
We sometimes don't get through public comment in 2 hours,
No.
and that doesn't count against us in our minutes for TEA. But the TEA goal is 2 hours, because you're not able as board members to really function after 5, 6, 7, even 8-hour meetings. Your ability to make decisions after 10 o'clock is difficult.
Correct.
And it's not fair. It's not fair to our teachers. It's not fair to our students that we're talking about budget after 10:30 at night. People can't stay up and watch. If you've got to get up the next day and go to a meeting or work, you're not watching. You're not taking part. And it should be, we want everybody to be a part of our meetings.
It makes it really hard to follow the business of the district. And I think that's what's happened now. So much has happened in Round Rock ISD over the past 2 years. And we know that, you know, boards and districts are disrupted everywhere as we, you know, have moved through COVID and other things that have happened in our world. However, we have to restructure so that we are able to allow access to people in our school district. You shouldn't have to stay up. I think our current board's record is maybe 11 and a half hours to follow the business of the district. Interesting fact, the statutorily required business that we need to take care of can actually be done in 20 minutes per year. So those long meetings are a sign of the dysfunction of our board. You know, we get all the information, I think
10 days.
10 days. Okay, so 10 days before, and that's 10 business days.
And that I will say that was not necessarily the case under our previous administration.
Correct.
But Dr. Azaiz has been really good about his staff getting us information 10 business days before
Correct.
our meetings.
So we have what we need to be well prepared for these meetings. We have the opportunity to ask our questions ahead of time. That's not to say that questions don't come up during the meeting or things that we need to express don't come up during the meeting, but by and large, we shouldn't be giving these large speeches or explaining our every vote, because we have what we need to be prepared for those meetings. And so that's also really important to look at as you're looking at candidates. I know that we want to become much more efficient with how we're operating district business, and I think that that's going to set the tone for the 2024 election too. You know, I was an educator, I was a classroom teacher before I got elected, and I work for myself now. I consult, so I make a lot of my own hours, and I don't know what I would do being an educator in another district and being on the school board. That's not tenable, and that's something that I want to think about for future elections, because we need people that are representative of our school district to be able to be on our board. So I'm not just thinking about this election, I'm thinking about how we can make this more accessible for people in our district as we continue to move forward over the years.
Though we don't want to take the focus off this election because it is incredibly important. There are 5 seats that are up, and we have our 2 most disruptive board members, the board members who don't feel like policy and rules really apply to them. They have a candidate. They have 5 candidates that they are pushing hard that they want to be on the board in our place.
Correct.
And the danger in that is that you have to be on the board for a year to be a board officer. And so that's going to mean the only 2 board officers that we have will be Trustees Bone and Weston. Should we even lose 2 places?
Correct.
Right? I mean, 4 people is all it takes. So if there is a turnover of 2 spots, then agendas will be set. Meeting what the board focuses on will completely change. You know, Trustees Bone and Weston have talked about getting rid of Lone Star governance, not wanting to, even though it is all about student outcomes and it's student focused. They've talked about getting rid of wanting to not do Lone Star governance,
Right.
not wanting to be in that structure that actually forces a board to talk about students.
Right. And Lone Star governance isn't a perfect model, but I think it's been the saving grace for our board, even with all the dysfunction of holding ourselves accountable to how long we were spending or what percentage of time was spent on student outcomes. You know, as the secretary that we started tracking that under, it was embarrassing to report
It is embarrassing.
0% of time, and now Amy does that. But I think that was the accountability that's helped us refocus, and even when we have colleagues that are driving the focus away from student outcomes, redirect that focus. And so nothing's ever perfect, but I think that that's a really good guardrail, and it's been a good guardrail for us. So we just wanted to talk about what the consequences of breaking quorum are. And we also want to talk about how we set meetings. So there's a couple different types of meetings. So our regularly scheduled meetings are almost always on the 3rd Thursday of the month. They begin at 5:30, which is earlier than they used to begin when you first got elected.
When I
right?
first got elected, they started at 7, but we were able to do closed session prior to the meeting. But now the way the laws have changed, we have to allow public comment on anything, and so we have to put the public comment first. So the board always got there at 5:30, and we always started at 5:30, but the actual meetings used to start at 7. Now everything has to start at 5:30. So it is very early.
Right.
If you work, especially if you work, say, in Austin, and you're trying to drive on 35,
Right.
you're not going to make it to our meeting on time.
Yeah, so it's challenging. And then sometimes we go super late into the night. We have some other meetings. Like I said, might have call meetings. We also have meetings for grievances, where we hear grievances. And right now we're hearing grievances that span time because that process was kind of put on hold during COVID. And we schedule grievances for first available quorum, right? So everybody doesn't necessarily have to be at those meetings. Because we need to schedule those meetings, we work to schedule them for when quorum is
And
available.
it's quorum and then the grievant.
Right.
You know,
It's
so
their schedule.
there's a lot of schedules that have to come into place. And so I know people have been really frustrated about that. I mean, some of them have taken a year. Again, if we had trustees that would RSVP and say whether they're going to be there, we could at least verify a quorum of the board in a timely fashion and then get those dates to our grievant.
Correct.
You know, and then we could try to schedule those.
Correct.
So we're almost there, but it does mean so many extra meetings.
It does.
So many extra meetings for us. And people need to be aware of that. It is a huge time commitment.
Yeah, I would say there have been weeks where it's been 10 hours. There have been weeks where it's been 20, 25, 30 hours. So
outside of the meeting.
correct.
And then we might have 20 hours in our 2 meetings. I think we had 1 week where we had an 8-hour meeting on a Tuesday, we had a grievance on a Wednesday, and then we had another 8 or 9
regular meeting on a Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't walk into those meetings, and we don't walk into those meetings unprepared without looking and reviewing the information and asking necessary questions. So it is a big time commitment. It is a sacrifice. And I think it's important to look at the people who are willing to take that time for the good of your children, for the good of our community, and ask ourselves, you know, why? Why would we do this? I mean, I'm doing this because I am an educator, and because I worked inside of the district as a teacher, and while I loved Round Rock ISD, I'm a proud product of Round Rock ISD, there were things that I wanted to see us work on. And this was the mechanism for me to have that access. And now being on the inside, seeing everything that I get to see, sitting on the dais, but not only on the dais, in closed session as well, it's imperative that we have people that have the best interests of students at mind and not any outside influence. There's too much at stake for public education, and there's too much at stake for Round Rock ISD right now.
And I would say too, we also need people who are willing to listen to legal advice and actually understand that the lawyers that we hire understand the law more than they do, better than they do. The law's not up for personal interpretation. That seems to actually be an issue for some of our colleagues and even people who I'm sure will comment on this post, that their own personal interpretation of the law is what they think is actually valid, and that is not true. They are not the courts. They are not the attorney general. It is not their interpretation of the law that matters. So I do hope that you will look at what people have done. I mean, I have dedicated, as I've said numerous times, almost 20 years of volunteer service, and this is just another level of volunteer service to the district. It's a lot more. I did have to give up a lot of PTA and scouting and other volunteer service, but it has been my life to volunteer for this district for almost 20 years, and I do love this district, and it's been great for my kids. All of my, I've had 4 that have graduated from McNeil. They've gone on and done well and have enjoyed their time. And my youngest is now a freshman at McNeil, and he's loving it. And I want the best for my neighborhood, for my community, and for Round Rock ISD as a whole, for everybody, for all of our kids. I want everybody's kids to have the experience that my kids have had.
Yeah, it's important to look at that. And as I said, I'm a proud product of Round Rock ISD, but also an 8.5-year educator. And even when I was an educator, a lot of my volunteer hours went to Round Rock ISD, whether it was the Safety and Security Task Force, the Equity Task Force. I even served on a bond committee for a short time, which was a wow experience for a classroom teacher. And so, we're deeply invested in this district. And I just want to add one more thing that may seem out of place, but I don't believe it is. As you're researching and looking at candidates, look at those that are litigious towards the district. It's interesting and hard to understand how we can be charged with protecting the district while being engaged with things like receiving attorney-client privileged emails and confidential information just as a community member, or filing frivolous lawsuits against the district. It takes a while for things to be litigated. I'm not a lawyer, but it takes a long time for things to be litigated. And oftentimes we've had some people that are running that are a part of this, and that's locking up our systems, right? That is costing the district money. That's costing you, the taxpayer, money, many times on frivolity. And so I really don't understand how people can say they have the best interest of students and teachers at hand and then do things like this. And so once again, I will always say Round Rock ISD is not a perfect district. We both have a critical love of Round Rock ISD, and I think that that's why we both ran for school board.
Yeah, it was shut up or put up for me, right?
Correct.
I mean, I was complaining a lot, and I decided that I needed to actually step up.
Right, the man in the arena. I don't remember who has that quote about the man in the arena. It's easy.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, it's easy to criticize from the outside, but we're both committed to being on the inside. It's also important for people to realize that we have access to a lot of confidential information that other people don't have, and we've taken an oath of office for that confidentiality to protect the district. It's part of our fiduciary duty to the district as well. So it's important to watch people that want to give half truths and half the information.
Because they know we can't respond.
Correct.
They know we can't respond, and they know we can't give the truth because it is confidential.
And they know because of our ethical belief and because our values of what we committed to that we're not going to violate that. So that's important. We want to thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us, let us know. I think there will be a couple more of these, and we're looking forward to engaging our community. Once again, I am Tiffanie Harrison. I'm running for Round Rock ISD Trustee Place 6. I'm the current Vice President of the Board, and I greatly in advance appreciate your vote, and not just your vote, but you spreading the word to make sure that people know who we need in our elected offices.
And I'm Amy Weir. I am the current Place 5 trustee for Round Rock Independent School District, and I am running for re-election. And I hope to have your vote, either early voting or November 8th, please go to the polls. Please make sure you go to the bottom of the ballot. We are at the very bottom. There is no R, there is no D. You're going to vote for all 5 places for Round Rock Independent School District. Please, please do your homework. Please make sure that we keep Round Rock ISD the great destination district that it is. Continue to work to improve it, but definitely cause no harm.
Thank you.